Hello everyone and welcome to the 28th season of Sundays at 2.
If I cut the
I see a
lights,
show of hands. Is there anyone who has
if I
been
cut the
coming
light
to
on mine,
Sundays
doesn't
at
get
2
the
for
screen, it's
28
glared.
years?
So we'll see how we do with the lights and lights.
All right.
Because I looked at it, but it just still glares it.
We have a great program lineup for you this year.
And I got a count.
We're going to be starting with Sue Lindsey, who's going to be talking to us about responsible landscaping practices and how to protect our property and the bay. Next week will be Paul Shakatano, who's going to talk about the Lancaster County Strategic Plan. In February, we have Dr. Kenneth Ellenbogen, who's going to talk about cardiac care, which should be important to everyone. Keith Kelbeck, who will talk about the Northern Nick during the Civil War. Northern Nick Navy Kate Rose, who had a career elsewhere and then has returned to the Northern Nick, and she's going to talk about what it was like then and what it's like now coming back. And finally, in March, we have Danielle Dick, understanding the unique genetic disposition of your child or grandchild and why they do what they do and why they act like they act. That should be really interesting as well. There are flyers on the table for all of the programs if you want to pick one up as a reminder, put it on your refrigerator, and we hope to see you back here for one or more of the programs this year. I'd like to introduce the members of the Sundays at 2 committee. Our chairman, Ernie Munching, is not able to be here today. Neither is Pat Tracy or Sandy Toomey with some illnesses and some family emergencies that have called them away. Other members who are here today, Lucia Schulware is in the back. My name is Sheila Stepko. I'm also on the committee. We have a new committee member, Bud Ward, who is joining us. This is his first time with us. He's in the back as well. And also assisting us on the committee, Alice Cooper, the library director. She's in the back. And the person without whom we could not do anything, technically, Shelley Robinson. Shelley is streaming the program live on Facebook, and it's also will be available on the library's YouTube video for anybody who wants to watch it again. It's my great pleasure today to introduce Sue Lindsey, who will be our featured speaker. Sue is a native of Somerset in the UK, and she has lived on every continent except Antarctica. She met her husband in Uruguay while she was teaching there, and they traveled around the world for 20 years, where she primarily taught while he did diplomatic things. 25 years ago, Sue became a Northern Nick Master Gardener, and she has been quite active in the Master Gardener program over the years. She has served as president in charge of community education, gardening in the Northern Nick Seminar. She founded an after-school program at the primary school, which she ran for 7 years, which is currently the chair of the adult education program, which includes the Speakers Bureau. So if you are in another organization and you need a speaker on any of the topics that the Master Gardeners cover, Sue is the person that you need to contact, and you get a hold of her. Look her up on the web, and the Master Gardeners have a website. She has accumulated over 7,000 hours as a Master Gardener. And her most recent passion is shoreline evaluation program, which is why we're here today. Sue is going to speak for about 45 minutes, and we'll have a Q&A session afterwards. If you would, please hold your questions. And please direct general questions to her during that time. If you have specific questions about what you want to plant in this little plot in your own garden, if you could hold that until after, she'll be here during cookie and coffee time, and she'll be glad to take specific questions. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Sue Lindsey.
I don't think I need the microphone. I've got a loud voice. If you can't hear at the back, let me know and we'll change strategies. Well, good afternoon, and it's good to see you all here. I'm not entirely sure if your presence here indicates a passion for the shoreline or just because it's so cool outside you can't think of what else to do, but welcome anyway. There's also quite a lot of people here that I seem to recognize, and I see the expectant faces looking at me. So let me make this quite clear. This is not a Harry Potter moment. I am not going to wave a magic wand and recreate this. I'm not quite sure whether this is an instruction or a question or whatever. But all I can offer you now is a degree of awareness, a little bit of knowledge, and the rest, I'm afraid, is up to you, and just plain old hard work. So, having said that, that's okay. Then let's get going. It's all about the bay. When we do shoreline evaluations, we tell our clients, yes, we are here to help you protect your property, to provide you with strategies that will make your banks more stable, whatever it is that you are looking for. But our underlying purpose is to have people using behaviors which result in improving the water quality of the Chesapeake Bay. We all live here on the water. Why did we come here? Not to be on some sort of body of water which is moving towards being a cesspit. We need to clean it up. And so that's what our basic rationale is. So let's start with the bay, and these are probably facts that you all know, but a refresher is never any bad thing. The Chesapeake Bay watershed covers 6 states. It's 64,000 square miles. Now that is the largest land-to-water ratio of an estuary anywhere in the world. And its average depth is only 22 feet. So this in itself is a problem. Add to that, we've got some 17, well it's now 18 million people who live within that watershed. You've got another 170,000 who move here every year. And the impacts of that are significant. Added to that, the bay supports over about 3,600 species of animals and plants, and also it supports over $1 trillion worth of economic activity. So this is a major player, both in our lives and in the lives of the nation. Let's look at this idea of the people who are moving here. 170,000, give or take. COVID and the recession, it's kind of hard to get accurate figures for the last few years, but this is as good as anything else. What does that mean? Well, more people mean more homes. More homes means more development. What does that do? Essentially, it is interrupting the water cycle. Why? Because our developers go in, they strip out all the plants that are there. And I'm not knocking developers, build houses, you have to do this. So they remove the plants that are there. They then add impervious surfaces, roofs, roads, paths, pools, patios, all adds up. When it rains, that rain can no longer fall upon soil that absorbs that water, so the whole process of infiltration is prevented. What does this do? It creates urban runoff. The water that is falling from the skies is going to fall upon those impervious surfaces, which will channel it and drive it down anywhere that's going downhill. What happens? Then we get erosion and downstream runoff. So inevitably, the impact of people moving into the watershed is we are disrupting the natural processes which might at one time have helped the Chesapeake Bay keep clean and healthy. My first slide said 17 million people. Actually, I checked, it's 18 people now. 18 million people living on the watershed. That's anticipated to go up to 20 million by 2030, and 2030 isn't very far away. Let me just interpret this for you, because of the back stuff and you probably can't see it. Here we have, doesn't show up very well, but see where I am. This is a measure of the purity of the water of the bay. When Captain John Smith first came here in 1607, we will take that as being 100%. The water was clean, pure, pristine. It blew his mind, the amount of fish, marine life there was here, and what a paradise this area was. Our bottom line is the timeline since 1607 with a few gaps. And then, of course, you can see our line, which is measuring the purity, the quality of the water. It's not very impressive. By the time we get to 1967, which is where this is here, which was when the Chesapeake Bay Foundation was formed, we are down in the low 20s from a peak of John Smith's time, 100% clean. Millions have been poured into the bay since then to try and clean up the water. And yes, we've made some progress. But if we look at the colours here, blue, the upper layers indicate the water would be what we would consider to be saved from its decline. The middle line here indicates where we would see stability, that it's not getting worse, maybe it's getting better. In the green area, it's improving, but down in the yellow area here, it is still dangerously out of balance. So that's where we are today. Now, it is not anticipated that we could ever get back to this point, to 100%. The development I talked about, it's not possible. So, as a goal, we are accepting the idea that 70% would be 100%, if you see my drift. That would be the top we could anticipate. Where are we? Well, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation puts out every year a report card, just like those things you nervously took over to your parents many years ago. And it gives two figures. It gives an actual number figure and a letter figure. And it bases its report upon three areas: fisheries, habitat, and pollution. Back in 2018, we were at 33% and a D+, and that was down 1% from 2016. 2020, we were, where were we? We were at D+, and at this point down to 32%. This is the most recent one, 2022. Where are we? 32% and a D+. We are not making much in the way of progress. However, before you start getting depressed or stand up and go home, there is one positive thing that I can offer you as evidence that all this activity and money is achieving something. You're all familiar with the idea of dead zones. They're a natural process. Waterways have them. There's a huge one down in the Gulf of Mexico. We have one. It's an area where there's not enough oxygen in the water to support the marine life that should be here. I know that this is kind of hard to interpret, but here we've got the Chesapeake Bay, and all you need to focus on is that blue is good and pink is bad. Okay, got it? Pink is bad. Lots of pink. Here. Let me see it. No, I can't. Very little blue down here. That was 2008. However, take a look at 2020. Still, in this case, we've got orange as being bad, but look at the amount of blue there is. There has been a significant improvement in the dead zone, in that it is shrinking. So that tells us something good to make us feel a bit better about this all. And I found this in the paper the other day. Experts expect to find that the 2022 dead zone is the 10th smallest since 1985. Well, it's not much, but it's better than nothing. So progress is being made. So just reviewing the situation with the Chesapeake Bay. It is long, it is narrow, and it is shallow. The watershed is huge. This means we've got lots of land, but not much water. So it's not like as if we are on the shores of the Atlantic, where you've got vast quantities of water out there, and we can actually keep on, to some degree, pouring pollutants into it, and it will be diluted by the sheer volume. We don't have that volume of water, and Hampton Road is sort of like what's the word I'm looking for, a bottleneck. So it's holding what is here in, even though we do have tidal flow. So the actual shape and volume of the watershed and the bay is a fundamental problem that we have to live with. So just to summarize, development will continue and the water and the bay's waters will remain vulnerable. Nothing we can do about it. We spend a lot of time, money and effort on trying to mitigate against that, and there has been some progress. But as you can see from the quoted figures, we're still a long way away from that magical goal of 70%. Okay, so that was the bay. Let's now get closer to the land. But first of all, let us consider the sheer power of water. Do you remember these scenes? June, I think it was of this year, down at Rodanthe in North Carolina. It is not my role or place to make comments on anybody's real estate decisions. That was tempting. We will say no more. I just want you to hold those pictures in your mind. We'll come back to them in a moment. I always thought that house as it crumbled down, it's like an elderly cow sort of holding up and dying. Anyway, move on. All right, that was dramatic. But that was caused by the mighty power of the Atlantic Ocean. We expect, when you've got a fetch of 3, 4, 5,000 miles, those waves are being pushed, yeah, you've got a powerful force there. However, we live on little creeks and rivers and inlets and whatever, but even when your erosion is not dramatic like that, it is still potentially a slow and lethal enemy. Need I say more? Yeah. How many of you remember the hotel at Windmill Point? Okay, I'm not quite sure when it was demolished, but this picture is taken from a field trip we had, I think probably about 2018, our shoreline group, and we are standing on the concrete pad of the hotel. As you can see, it's not in very good state. At least a third of it is going into the water. It was a good thing they removed the hotel. Just imagine what that would look like if there'd been a, 3-story, 4-story hotel on top of it. And just to give a bit more context, this is the same bit in 2021. Not much left of it. I need to go down and see what it looks like today, but I suspect there won't be much to take a picture of. Again, power of water. We think of concrete as being solid, stable, but my mantra is water always wins. But, again, we come back to this thing, it's not just erosion we're having to look at. This is upland runoff. This was taken quite a long time ago, and I haven't been back there for a long time. I suspect that fence is no longer with us. And I believe there were houses not far behind that fence. We can speculate on their status. But this is not erosion. There's riprap at the bottom of this very high bank, but it's not affecting it. It is the erosive force of upland runoff, the water that is coming from the upland, which is resulting in this significant loss of land. So, having seen these pictures, maybe you're asking, what does that got to do with us? Well, remember that 85% of the Chesapeake Bay shoreline is in private ownership. You and me. Why most of us moved here? To own a bit of the Chesapeake Bay shoreline. But that also brings responsibilities with it. If we don't do anything, who is going to? What is our impact upon the Chesapeake Bay? Well, the bottom right-hand picture shows us from space what the impact is. Looking at the sediment, particularly in the upper portion of the Chesapeake Bay, and that's a picture, I think this is the Susquehanna River, after a heavy rainstorm. But it doesn't have to be, again, as dramatic as that. This is a fairly typical, I've got no idea where it is, but this could be anywhere on the northern neck. You can see the sediment in the water. Where is it coming from? Well, over here, there's naked earth, plowed fields. Here, there is impervious tennis court, roof, road going down a hill, road along here. Now we've got some trees here that will be affected in, to some degree, helping retain that sediment from going into the water, but as you can see, it's not nearly enough. The impact of the plowed earth and the impervious surfaces is allowing significant sediment to pour into this part of the bay. Ian, you will recognize these pictures. One of our members here took these from his house. This is at Carter's Creek. Before the storm, the water in Carter's Creek has been as pure as it ever is. But after the storm, sort of cafe au lait. And where is it coming from? Homeowners who live on the shores of the Carter's Creek and the runoff from their property. This is going down to an even smaller scale. You can see this anywhere you look. Runoff from roadways. We've got the road, the camber of the road is designed so the water will run off it. Where does it run to? Well, it runs to the edge. And yes, there is grass here, but there's always a little line between the end of the grass and the tarmac where you've got soil. The water pours off the roadway, gets into this, what now has become a channel, brings it down here. Here now this is becoming the gravel, so there's even more soil to contend with, and this is pouring straight into the creek. So it's only a little example of where you've got runoff, but multiply that by every road, every drive, and you can see there is a significant problem that starts with small beginnings. So, what is the role of homeowners? And here's the question I think you all have to ask yourself. If you live on, how many of you live on waterfront properties? Okay. Look into your souls and answer the question. Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? Because you're probably, there's no middle ground here, I don't think. You can't just be an observer. What do we do about it? Well, first of all, you really need to analyze your property. You need to look and see where you have vulnerability. And what are the things that we're looking at? Starting from your house, we don't just look down at the shoreline. You've got to take in the whole area of your property and see what is contributing to some of the problems. Upland runoff. Do you have a situation where the water after a storm is running down through your property towards the creek? Do you have bank slumping? I'll explain that, I'm sure, in just a minute. Do you have undercutting at the shoreline? And can you see examples of erosion occurring along the waterfront of your property? Let's just take a look at these one at a time. Upland runoff, not dramatic, but when it rains, the rainfall is going to be coming down here, and then it's going to follow the line of least resistance coming down here, where you have got bare earth. If there's bare earth, you need to be looking more carefully at your property, because that is the line of least resistance for water to follow. There's nothing to stop it. If you've got these lines of, whether it be mulch or pine tag or whatever, where the water is flowing down, that's another indication. You've got runoff. Where is it going? We always recommend that people, after a storm, or if you're really brave, during the storm, go out and look at your property. See where the water's going. You may not be aware of the fact that there are channels that are forming, which is carrying the runoff from your property into the adjacent water. This is a more extreme example, but showing exactly the same thing. What starts small, as that water develops a channel, it gouges out that channel more deeply and more water flows. And, well, you can see, it becomes a major problem. We had a field trip a month or so ago. We did a boat ride up the Great White Comical River, looking at properties. Does this belong to anyone here? Okay, good. As you can see, it's a little dark. I'm sorry about that, but it's the best I could do. This entire part of the bank has slumped. It's fallen down. Now, this has got nothing to do with erosion. This riprap down here is looking as though it looks fairly new. It looks in very good shape. It's doing its job. It's protecting the bank from the erosive forces of the river here. But that is not the problem. The problem is the water which is coming down here. This land becomes saturated. It's heavy, it's soggy, and it slides. I hope they've got good homeowner insurance. This is Belle Isle. If you want to see erosion, this is a great place to see it. Those of you who are familiar with Belle Isle, if you go to the picnic area and go just beyond the fence there, this is what you'll see, the bank. And we did a field trip there in October of one year, and the steps going down were still there. Did have a sign saying danger, keep off, but they were still there. We went back in the spring, and all that was there was on the beach. There was a pile of rubble. The bank had gone. And this, I think this is what is happening here. You can see the different color here of this soil. It's wet, it's been rainy, it's soggy, it's heavy. But then you hit a line of clay, and this wet, soggy soil slides off, and you end up with this. I think that's what's happening. Certainly, it's a very graphic example of how something that looks fairly stable, all it does is take a few rainstorms, and you've got a very different situation. Undercutting. Now, I suspect that a lot of you are saying, yeah, that looks like my place. It looks like mine. Maybe mine. If you live on the waterfront, you are going to have undercutting. Most people, unless you've got a very gentle bank. Is it a problem? Well, this is a judgment call. I would say this right now is not a problem. It may have been like this for 20 years. We can see, whoops, we can see here that there are roots here. So at one point, the bank was much further out. How long was it taking to recede that? Binns used to say, Virginia Institute of Marine Science, that the loss of 1 to 2 feet a year was normal. Hard to persuade a homeowner of that, but if you live on the water, you're going to have to accept the fact that life is not stable. Your property is not stable. Now, what can you do about it? Well, you can always say, yeah, I have a real problem, I need an engineered solution, and apply for a permit to put in riprap or the like. That's the last resort. I would say that this probably is fairly stable. Well, what you need to do is monitor this tree, make sure that it's showing no signs of decline or that it's not dangerous in any way. But if that's not with my property, it may well be, if you like it, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to watch it. And if then it deteriorates, then I will consult a shoreline engineer. Don't panic. Some of the things I showed you, if you live in Rodanthe, yes, panic. But here, you don't need to. Another place if you really want to see erosion is Dameron Marsh. This is if you take the walk out to the North Beach, not the one that goes over the boardwalk, goes out to the observation deck. This takes you down to the North Beach, which has been receding at frightening. Dameron Marsh used to be 1.5 miles further out. We have maps from 1937 which show the decline. It has been more rapid in recent years, and last time I was there, which was about a month ago, all these trees here had gone. They are all in the water. There are 2 straggly little ones left. you can almost, if you stand here on the edge and you look down, you can see cracks at your feet where the next bit is about to fall off. But also you can see here, this I assume is a line of clay here. We've got the sand is being brought in by the bay. But notice how these here, it's sticking, the water is eroding in here. But this top bit here is holding on a little more vigorously. Why? Because it has grasses growing. This is held together by the roots of these grasses. Now, what I said, water always wins. This is going to go, but it just illustrates the fact that the roots of grasses do give more stability to an eroding situation. If you want to see a fairly dramatic example of erosion, I recommend a walk out to Damarang. It's, assuming it's still there. Okay, so those are some of the vulnerabilities you're going to be looking for on your property. What to do about them? Well, let's identify some of the ways that you can protect your land. Engineered solutions, we're all familiar with seeing them around about. We've got riprap, we've got groins, breakwaters on the right, bulkheads down here. Not going to talk about any of these. I'm not an engineer, I'm not qualified to talk about it, not my business. If you think you need any of these, you need to consult a qualified shoreline engineer, and at the very end of this presentation, there's, I'll give you a reference to people. So let's move on to what you can do. If you are lucky, where you chose your property really well, nature has provided you with the ideal protection. You have a marsh, a lovely, lush, green marsh, which is both a sponge and a buffer. It absorbs the energy of the water from the creek or the river, and it sucks up the upland runoff that is coming off your property. It can be big, like this one that's up here. It can be a small strip, but it does the job for you. If you don't have one, you can create one, so long as your land is sufficiently it's low enough that it's not too deep. That's what I'm trying to say, and that you have 6 hours of sunshine a day. With those conditions, you can get a living shoreline established. This has an added factor in it, as we call it a marsh sill, which is a line of rock which you put out into the water. It will be covered at high tide, but it provides enough protection for these plants to get established and create a network of roots which will hold this marsh together as it grows and flourishes. Whatever it is, there's two main objectives. Keep them in mind. Control the runoff, reduce the erosion. Now, how do you stop problems before they happen? Let's look at your upland and your bank. The first thing is you need to create a riparian buffer. What is that? It's a vegetated area next door to the water. And seeing it just in schematic form, here's your home, your roof, which is impervious, your lawn, which is considered to be an impervious surface. 55% of the water on the lawn runs off. So then you have your buffer zone here, preferably with trees, understory, ground cover, all of which will send down roots, stabilize the bank, and absorb the runoff. And it's law. You're supposed to have it. This 100-foot buffer, the RPA, is required by local ordinances. This is what Northumberland County says. To minimize the adverse effects of human activities, a 100-foot wide buffer of vegetation that is effective in retarding runoff, preventing erosion, and filtering pollution from runoff shall be retained if present and established where it doesn't exist. That means you have to plant a riparian buffer by law. Is it practical? Not for most people, no. Not 100 foot, but 50 foot's better than nothing. 25 foot's better than nothing. 10 foot's better than nothing. Plant something, and you will be doing it for the good of not merely your property, but the bay as a whole. What does it look like? Hey, doesn't that look good? Wouldn't everybody want that? Oh, there's a story attached to this. Wife persuades husband not to mow to the edge. recreational mowing is not good for the environment. Okay? Getting on that mower and going back and forth and having a lovely time. No. Then throw in a few handfuls of seeds, plant a few things, turn it into a wildlife meadow, and you've got something beautiful and effective. If you take one message home from this, don't mow to the edge. Leave a strip. And then the birds will do the rest. They'll poop seeds into your grass. Little things will grow up. Okay, you may not want all of them. Once a year, bush hog it. And it will come up again, but you will have created a buffer, a sponge that will help with these issues. You remember my pictures from the beginning of Rodante. Let's get back to this. So what do we have here? We have beach houses, solid, stable, upstanding, nothing wrong with them. What do we have in front of them? We have a riparian buffer. Okay, I'm pushing it a bit, but the same idea is there. It's sand planted with grasses, and when you go to the beach, don't walk on the grasses. Okay, it says don't walk on the grasses. They are essential to holding that sand in place. So, here is your riparian buffer protecting this house, and here was the house that didn't have a riparian buffer. Got the message? Riparian buffer. Another thing you can do, add water bars, which are any obstruction which goes perpendicular to the flow of the water that's coming off your property, which deflects it and slows it down. So, in this case here, you've got, both of these look like paths, but then primary purpose actually is to provide obstructions to slow down that flow of water. The water then spills over to the next level, but it will have dropped the sediment it's carrying, and it will have slowed it down. Here is our water bars at the Fisherman's Museum, where we have a demonstration garden. We added the white stone in to make it look pretty, but basically this is a huge parking lot that water is flowing off of, pouring down, and this ensures that by the time it gets to the creek, the majority of the pollutants from the parking lot and the sediment will have been dropped. In this one, picture somebody gave me, I don't know whether they intended it, but essentially this is the same thing. Use your old rocks left over and riprap and obstruct that flow of water so that the water has to go off in either direction. In so doing, it will be slowed, it will drop its sediment. You can even go one step further and try and pretty it up and make it look like a planted terrace. Not really advised. A lot of hard work there to maintain it. But that's a very successful way of treating a steep bank. And the obstructions they put there were actually rolls of chicken wire with leaves stuffed in them, which made a barrier, and then earth behind and plants in, and you've dealt with that problem. Maybe the number one rule of all is add plants. Plants absorb runoff, moisture-loving plants, reduce your lawn areas, create planting islands, break up your lawn with air and the turf grass that you've got growing there with more useful plants. And this just gives you a schematic picture of what is going on here. Help a damaged shore by planting a buffer of native shrubs and grasses. The thick tangle of thirsty roots dramatically slows runoff. It's not what's going up that we're interested in so much as what is going down and the job that those roots are doing. Give you a few specifics. Here are some of the plants that we have growing here. The wimpy little thing on the left, turf grass, you're never going to get more than 6 inches of roots out of turf grass. On the other hand, our native switchgrass here, which does really well, there's a very attractive plant. It says it will grow to 9 feet. I'm a bit skeptical of that, but certainly it will do 6 or 7 feet. And look at the density of those roots. That's going to hold that bank, it's going to absorb the water that's coming in, and these other two, little bluestem and American beach grass, again, wonderful plants for a shoreline environment. This is my property, which was when we moved in 1.5 acres of sort of grass. Nothing growing there at all. It's a bit daunting to try and get rid of 1.5 acres of grass. You probably can't do it, particularly if it's only you doing it. So, bit by bit, nibble away with it. Plant islands of shrubs and trees. Plant one tree, plant another, put some shrubs in the middle, you've got an island, and you've made an impact on that sheer mass of grass. Here's another angle of it. Same thing. Can't get rid of all this grass, but I've got islands here which provide plants with deep roots which are going to impact the flow of water, and I have heavy flow that comes off the fields behind me, and it's going to suck it up, literally. Another thing you need to do is to monitor and maintain your shoreline. If you've got a natural shoreline, lift up your trees so that overhanging branches don't create shade. If you've got a marsh, make sure it doesn't have debris in it. The debris will kill the marsh. And if you do have it, use the marsh to take plugs from one bit to fill in the holes, if you like. So, lifting up the trees, what a lovely view, looking through trees so you get the shadows, you get your house framed, you've got your whole view is framed by these trees, but the trees are working for you. If you've got trees growing on the banks, get rid of the limbs that are shadowing. Here is a perfectly good bit of marsh grass growing. It's not growing in here because there's shade. It can't grow. It needs 6 hours of sunlight a day. So, chop them off. Same thing here. Lovely bit of marsh growing here, but not in here. Just take off these branches, you will let the light in, and you should be able to expand your marsh. Debris, there is no place for tires in your marsh. Get rid of them, and all the rest of this junk. And there will be nothing growing here because they couldn't grow where there was debris. So take a few plugs from here and here and speed the process of healing that marsh by adding extra vegetation. If you've got a defended shoreline, riprap, well, it's not going to look after itself. You still have to be aware of what's going on. Monitor it, especially after storms. And remember, riprap does not heal itself. It's not like a scab. If you've got a wound, it will get worse. This is from my neighbour, who I've been gently saying you need to do something about that for quite some time. What's happening here? The waves are washing over the riprap, which wasn't put high enough in the first place. Those waves have eroded this bank here. Then the stones that are being thrown up scour this area and make it worse. And the gaps in the riprap here make the stones move around, so it adds to the whole instability of it and the potential for it to eat away at that bank. If there had been a nice row of switchgrass growing there, that probably wouldn't have happened, because the grass would have held the bank in place. And just in case you haven't got the message that you need to monitor your riprap, my dear friend got an estimate in 2012 for repair, which was $10,000. Didn't do anything. The problem got worse. The cost of rocks went up. We just had it done. Actually, it was $23,000 in the end. Okay. Monitor your riprap. Don't let it get damaged. Okay. Coming to the end. Let's just look at some wider considerations about our impact. Okay, we're protecting your property, we're protecting the bay, but we can also protect the wider environment doing these things. And this is where I bring you to someone that many of you are familiar with, Douglas Chowdhury, who's a professor of entomology. He's a bug man up at the University of Delaware, and a few years ago produced this book, Bringing Nature Home, How You Can Sustain Wildlife with Native Plants. He's become the, if you like, the guru of the sustainable gardening movement and the need to consider the whole ecosystem. His message, basically what we've been saying, development has removed the natural growth from our land. And then what do? We fill our gardens with exotics from China. They look lovely, but they're not native and they don't do anything useful. So what have we left for the wildlife, the insects and the birds and everything up the food chain? Because we've pulled out the bottom brick of that tower of sustained life. Which means that the role of the homeowner actually has become of paramount importance. We've decreased the natural habitat, so what do we have to do? The home garden has to replace it. We are the only ones now who can restore some kind of balance that will then both maintain and hopefully restore diversity to our natural world. Quote from Talmud, unless we restore native plants to our suburban ecosystems, the future of biodiversity in the United States is grim. And just remember, okay, we don't eat insects yet. Probably will. But everything we eat has, at some point in their food chain, eaten insects. If the insects aren't there, what you buy from the supermarket is going to be significantly reduced. So what steps can you take towards having a positive impact? Well, reduce your chemicals, increase native plants, support the food chain, plant the pollinators, protect wildlife. Very quick run through these and we're done. Remember, chemicals are toxins, they are pollutants. When you use them, you seldom affect only the targeted entity, and there are unintended consequences. Spray for insects, you kill all insects. And if you kill all insects, you kill the beneficials as well as the ones you're trying to get rid of. And the ones you're trying to get rid of, the bad insects, will restore their numbers more quickly than the beneficials. So you end up with a worse problem than when you started. Use native plants. They don't need fertilizer and pesticides. They support the native insects and creatures, and they're part of this whole interdependent ecosystem. For instance, oaks, willows, and cherries support over 1,400 different insect species. Plant an oak tree, and you've done your bit for the planet. I went out to my garden and I picked a selection of native plant leaves. All of them had been chewed. None of them had been chewed fatally. The insects don't destroy the things they're dependent upon for life. Unlike the exotics, Japanese people eat everything. I'm sure you've noticed. They chew them down to the bone. Not very bright people. This is one of my favourite quotes from Talmud. A plant that has fed nothing has not done its job. When you go out and you look at your garden and you see all your leaves there, shiny, bright, green and untouched, stop congratulating yourself. You have produced a completely sterile garden which is doing nothing useful apart from producing beautiful Chinese exotics put in a bowl on your dinner table. Not the point. Get real. Do something useful. Plant natives. So we all know about pollinators. We've become aware of the fact that they are essential to have them. Otherwise, things are not going to get pollinated. And by things, we need food. Food for us. There's self-interest here. But not only will you contribute to the overall health of the ecosystem, but you will end up with a beautiful garden. I mean, come on. Isn't that lovely? Lovely, oh, beautiful. And you get the butterflies as well. Protect the wildlife. Okay, I'm not sure about the deer. I wasn't very good culling deer. But kill the foxes and you know what you get? Rabbits. Yes? Lots of rabbits. Yeah. Raccoons. I even looked this up. I googled it before I came here. What do raccoons eat? Voles, moles, all sorts of smaller creatures, as well as everything else. But they all contribute, they all have their place. Apart from the deer. Yes, they have their place. I just haven't found it yet. So the deer, well, it's not around my property. When Talmud signs books, he signs off with this statement: garden as if life depended on it. I like that. It's true. So, bearing that in mind, there we go. Apart from, hang on, I also like this bit. This comes from our Master Gardener Handbook. Collectively, many small actions by individuals lead to powerful results. Keep that one in mind. And I said I would give you a reference to things that I haven't covered today. If you think that you may need an engineered solution, riprap or the like, you need to contact these guys. Seas, the shoreline engineer is Mike Van Landingham. He's a very nice man. He's very knowledgeable. He will come out to your property. He's free, paid for by your tax dollars, unlike us, we charge. And he will come out and give an assessment of whether you do need a hardened engineered solution, and if you do, how to go about it. If, on the other hand, you are interested in establishing a living shoreline, there is the VCAP program, which will pay for it. The VCAP program, and my fellow master gardeners, correct me if I got this wrong, will pay for up to 80% of your costs, up to $35,000. Because living shorelines don't come cheap. If you're having to have one installed, it's about as expensive as an engineer. But you can get, this is not, you have to pay up front and they will repay you. They monitor you for 10 years, so you can't just walk away from it. It's a serious commitment. But, hey, $35,000. They also will pay for things like, contribute to things like putting in rain gardens and various other devices which will lead to this overall goal of improving the quality of water of the Chesapeake Bay. And with that, I really am finished. Okay, questions? No questions? Okay, then tea and coffee, maybe.
Does burn help any undergrowth or marsh regenerate in a quicker and better way?
Well, some people here may know this, but I think I have to confess. Last year I decided to burn my bank with the idea of getting it, rejuvenating it. And I know you shouldn't burn if the wind is more than 5 miles an hour, and it wasn't, but I hadn't taken gusts into account. I burnt my entire fence, I burnt right up my trees, and only because the wind dropped did I not have to, with egg on my face, call the fire department. So that's not an answer to your question, but it is do it carefully. I don't know is the answer. Does anyone want to? Does it? It's a myth. It gets rid of some of the bad stuff. And also one of the problems with living on grass is like I've got lots of huge chunks of miscanthus and canthus grass and things I shouldn't have planted in the first place. And they get very difficult to cut down the thicker they get. So you get more and more dead stuff at the bottom. My idea was to get rid of all that, take it back to the earth, and so it would come up fresher and better looking. And it did. Did it? I was actually hoping to kill some of it. It didn't do that. It came back as vigorous, if not more vigorously than before. So it's more, I think, an aesthetic process than anything else. Your marsh you don't want to be burning. Marsh can look after itself anyway, it's wet. The weeds you're after, leave your marsh alone. Effectively, yeah. I wouldn't recommend it in your marsh. For the off the ground, it's up to you. I should probably try and burn mine again this year, but I've warned my neighbours when I do it, I'm going to ask them to come and chaperone me. I can't be trusted by myself. It's a dangerous situation. Not a one-woman job either. I learned that the hard way. Any other questions? Henry?
You mentioned that you started with a lot of grass on your property. And then you had to put in islands.
Yep.
Do you have resources that you use to find that kind
No, Henry was asking me, I said that I just had grass growing on my property, an acre and a half of more than that grass, which bred mainly chickweed. Did I have any sort of resources to tell me what to do? No, I just started, impulse buying. You go to the nursery. It was like 6 inches of chip, there was no soil. So we dug little holes in the chip, added in a sort of handful of soil, stuck a plant in. The property actually belonged to the church, so we told the church to pray and we added fertilizer. It's lovely today. But those things, I think the answer is experiment and go with it. I mean, I know I should have better, more scientific answers, but you never know the underlying conditions. Is there a moisture issue there? It surprises me, you say if a tree was growing there, nothing else will grow there. The old roots of the tree are going to break down and decompose, and they will add in decompose organic matter, so it may naturally improve. Maybe you haven't tried growing the right things. Look up plants that grow in very poor soil and see, try that. Ian?
Get a soil test.
Get a soil test. Yeah, I was going to say, get a soil test. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
With the water bars, it looked like you had something else that was helping to slow the flow of the water down in front of the water
Well,
bars.
it's a sort of continuous process. How can I demonstrate this? All right, here's your flow of water coming down. So you put an obstruction here, okay? So the water then is deflected to go this way and that way. But it will go around the end of your obstruction. So you put something down here, so it has to go, in other words, you create a zigzag. And so each time that water has to turn the corner, it will slow. And each time it hits something, it will allow the sediment to drop. And slow it down, let it absorb. That's the process. And do it as far as you can. And you can use old tree limbs, trees you've cut down, landscaping timbers, 4x4s, rocks. You don't have to go and buy anything, just use what's in your garden and experiment with it. But it's hard, so long as you are deflecting and slowing the velocity and giving that water a chance to drop its sediment, then what you're doing is working.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Sue will be available after to answer any questions that you have. We invite all of you to join us for coffee and cookies. Thank you for coming out to open the season. We look forward to hopefully seeing all of you back again next Sunday or sometime throughout the season. Thank you, Sue.